Hello and welcome back to the next part of the JavaScript challenge. Today we're going to be doing array prototype blast. And it's a pretty straightforward problem, but we're going to learn some good things out of it. So in this problem, you need to write code that enhances all arrays such that you can call array.last on any array and it will return the last element. If there are no elements in the array, it shall return a -1. You may assume that an array is the output of JSON.parse. So in this first example, we have an array of null an empty object in 3, and then we want to return the last object, so 3. And then in the second example, we have an array that has nothing, so we want to return -1. So first of all, let's go over the prototype versus like just doing something else. Like let's say we have something like const array here, and we just make it equal to 1, 2, 3. And then we say like array.last equals something, right? And a method that does something. What's the difference between this and the prototype? So the difference here is if you do array.last, that will apply to just this one array. But when you modify the prototype of the actual array, then that will apply to every single array. So any array you use in the future will be changed. So essentially, this is the same way of thinking of like if you have a class called array that includes every single array, and now you're giving it a method called last in Python. It would be kind of similar to that. And so we're modifying this method, and now every single array will have that. And also, because you're in this method last, you can use the keyword this to refer to array, right? So that's also going to be important to know. So let's think about how we would do this, right? What we need to do is we need to return the last element in the array, but we only need to return the last element if there's a non-empty array. So what fields do we know, like what field does an array have that is going to be good to check if the array is empty? Well, what's a really common field with arrays? It's going to be length, right? So every array has a length. So if you do this dot length, that will give you the length of the array you're in. And you can, like I said, you can use this in the prototype because essentially you're like in a class referring to the array you're currently in. So what we can actually do is we can say something like if this dot, or we can even just say like if this dot length, we can even do it like this, right? This will give us a truthy value. So if the length is 0, this will be false. And if the length is non-zero, it will be true. So you could say if this dot length, what do we want to do? Well, we can just, and we can do this a bunch of different ways, but essentially we can just say like return. Then how do we get the value at the index? Well, what do we use to refer to the array? So we could use this again. So this will refer to the array. So you could do something like this. This at this dot length -1. Because let's say the array, like for this example here, this length will be 3, but we want this last element. So what's the element of this index using this dot length? It's this dot length -1, right? If the length is 3, so for this, the length equals 3. So how would we get the second element? Well, we can just say r at length -2. So, or length -1. So same thing we're doing here, except this is going to refer to any array that we're using because we don't have an actual like array for now. So we need to use this. Okay, so let's see what happens here. So if this dot length, return this. Okay, now what's our other case? Well, our other case is that the array is empty. So if the array is empty, we can just return -1, right? We don't need an else statement because we're already returning here. So if this gets executed, then this will never get executed and so on. So let's try that. Okay, so that does actually work. And now let's go over some more things. So how else could we do this? There is one other way you could do it. Or actually, there's like a lot of ways. But one other way you could do it is you could do a pop. So you could do this dot pop. However, this is not like the best way of doing it because we're modifying our array, right? So this will give us the last element, but we're modifying our array, which is not ideal. So, you know, like this is not the best way, but what other ways can we do this? Well, let's look at our array here. How else can we get the last element? Like what other methods do arrays have that give us the last element? Well, we could also do a slice, right? Like if we actually say r.slice, how do we get the last element with a slice? So if you do r.slice and you put in -1, this will give you an array of the last element. So let's just see what happens here. So if we console log here, log. Let's see what this prints us, right, essentially. let's take a look. So this gives us an array with 3. Now, how do we actually access the 3? Like right now we got an array of the last element, but how do we actually get that last element? Well, we could simply just do something like this, right? We have an array with 1 element, so we can just say, let's do this. And so if we do that, same thing here, same structure. If we do this, slice -1 to get the last element in array, and we just do add index 0. Let's see what happens there. Right. Yeah, so that also works. So slice does not modify the array. Slice gives you a new copy, so that's not as bad as the pop. So slice would definitely be acceptable. Now, let's actually clean this up a little bit, right? We don't need like this kind of thing, but let's clean this up a little bit just to make it like more presentable type of thing. So how can we do this? Well, we can actually use a ternary operator, right? So we can say something like this.length. If that is truthy, then let's do this, right? So you can even say like, I think you want to have a return first. So you want to have a return, then you want to have a truthy comparison. And so if the length is true, then you want to do this. Otherwise, we can just return -1. So you can do this as well. Now, you can do this in all these other things we discussed. You can do this.pop just like we discussed before, so that works as well. You could do it in like a bunch of different ways, but this looks cleaner than an if else, right? And so you could do the other one. What's the first one we discussed, where it was like this at -1 also works. But yeah, I think the main thing about this problem is just understand that this is gonna like how do we actually refer to the array, and the way to refer to the array inside a prototype or in a class, right? Like how would you refer to the object itself in a class? You would use this keyword. And so once you get comfortable with this keyword, you understand like this problem's pretty straightforward. All right, so that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.